It's been a tough winter looking after horses. My fields are underwater. However, snowdrops have arrived, and that reminded me that spring update should be filmed. So here we are. So here we go. So we always start with residential sales, and the reason we do that is because I own Fine & Country estate agencies in Norfolk and Suffolk, and that is the coalface, the real coalface of the residential market, and a lot of people are selling into this market. So how have we gone on? How's the start of the year gone for us? Well, not bad. So January was better than last year, and I think across the board most agents are reporting that they've got it off to a better start than last year. London is difficult still, but however, with London, the bottom end of the market, first time buyer end of the market, with the help of mum and dad, actually is okay. The rest of the London market is still very tough. Now, February is a distorted month for estate agents, and the reason for that is it's a short month. It's a very short month, and also we have half term, and that really messes up sales. It messes up people putting properties on the market. It also messes up people exchanging and actually agreeing sales because they're away with their children or they're doing different things. So February is a little bit distorted, but considering we've done okay in February, and the results I'm hearing from other agencies around the country and other agents that I know is that they've done okay as well. So we're all looking forward to spring. Spring is when the more expensive properties are put on the market because the gardens look better, there's daffodils out, snowdrops out. So there's always that optimism when the weather breaks, which it has done in the last few days. Now, let's talk about my friends, the house builders, the national house builders that build 63% of the properties in the UK every single year. I call them the sausage factory because at the end of the day, that's all they're really doing. They're churning out these houses, all look the same, all of the same standard just about, and they need to keep the sausage factory fed. They need to keep going. But what they won't do is be dictated to by the government on how many they sell, because if they put too many on the market at the moment, prices drop because they can't sell them very easily. They're finding it quite tough still. So this year they're talking about selling more houses, or building more houses and selling more houses than last year. Maybe still only just over 200,000, but we'll see. You know, it's a tough gig for them. It's a tough gig. So how have they got on so far? Again, they've been affected badly by the weather. You know, you can imagine getting on site in mud and trying to build houses. It's been very tricky. So the actual completions of houses is down. The sales has held up relatively well, similar to the agents, but you know, the next quarter is so important to all of us in terms of selling houses, and just as important to the big boys and girls as it is the smaller ones. The SMEs, the smaller property developers like myself that build less than 200 houses a year, or develop less than 200 houses a year. We probably do a few more some years, but not this year probably. It's a very tough market for the smaller the smaller builders and developers, and the reason for that is, well, a number of reasons. One, most people are paying 12% development finance, which is an awful lot. Secondly, a lot of people are going over their banking mandate, and I'm hearing that a lot at the moment, where, you know, they borrow the money over a year or 18 months, but they need it for 24 months or even longer. And some of these banks and bridges are taking advantage and charging a lot of penalty interest and fees as well. Now, what I would say to that is that if you've got a good relationship with your bank or bridger, they probably aren't. But if you don't know them well, then they may well do so. So that is an issue. And the reasons for that, of course, are property sales are slower than they anticipated. It's taken longer to build them. Planning has taken a lot longer. And interesting, we're planning now on a small development. We call small developments conversions of, say, 9 units and less. It's costing between 50 and 75,000 just to get planning, just to get on site. We're probably having to speak to and pay 8 different consultants, from ecology to bats to goodness knows what, absolute nonsense. And the architects and the building regs and working drawings, it's 50 to 75,000. So when you're looking at these small sites, remember that's all hard cash you've got to find, and that's where developers are struggling. They're also not managing to get all the cash out of these deals that they put in sometimes to move on to the next deal. So even if they're not under financial trouble, they're not getting the amount of money out they thought to move and buy the next deal. The residential investment market remains very solid, and people chase income when times are uncertain, and there is some uncertain times, and we'll talk about the political situation later, because that has a massive effect on the property industry, as it does any other industry or economy. So with the residential side of things, there is a market for the residential investments. Some of the foreign investors who bought a while ago are cashing in and getting out due to all the new rules and regulations coming in. We've spoken about this, renters reform and everything else. So some people are getting out, and they're getting out at quite a big discount to what they paid for things sometimes. So there is opportunities there. I've also noticed recently that most banks are now valuing property investments of over 3 units at around 10%. Now, they were valuing these properties at 6 or 7% as investments. They're now valuing them at 10% yield. And that gives an opportunity for people to buy in bulk and then sell off individually on long leases, so title split, which is something that we haven't been able to do for a while, because when it was the yield was smaller, there wasn't the gap between the investment value and the vacant possession value. That's now got bigger. So that's an angle that's starting to look very interesting over the last few months. And I think that will get a bigger opportunity as the year goes by. Commercial property, well, I'm a big fan of commercial property, as many people know. I've tipped it this year to it's really hit the bottom. Never catch a falling knife, they say, and I believe that the commercial market's just bouncing off the bottom, and we've invested quite heavily into commercial property in the last few years, but more so recently, mostly vacant property, which we then try to let and maybe convert the upstairs to residential. So, obviously that's still very popular, and also PD, of course, is still popular because it's cheaper to convert than it is a full development planning with full development, because you haven't got any social housing with PD, permissive development. But it's an interesting market. I'm slightly disappointed with the rates because commercial shops pay 75% of the rates in the UK on commercial property, but only occupy 25% of the space. This government promised in the budget that in April they would bring the commercial shop rates down substantially. They haven't done so, although a lot of shop rents have come down by half in high streets. That hasn't been mirrored by the rates, and it needs to be. So there's a lot of appeals starting to happen, but I see commercial as a big opportunity going forward still this year. The auction market, well, of course, this is the barometer for the whole of the property market, really. Whatever happens in auctions happens everywhere else 6-9 months later. And it's interesting. I've had a few phone calls from auctioneers I know saying, John, this didn't sell in the auction. It's looking cheap. Do you want to have a bid? The last bid was 499,000, and you just say to them, you didn't have a bid, did you? Let's be honest, because the reserve was 500,000. So we all know there wasn't a bid at all, probably, and they all have a laugh with me. There's one particular one that was guiding at 600, and I've just made them an offer of 400 after the auction. I'm not sure I'll get it, but it isn't worth a lot more to us than 400,000. 2 big houses, that is a care home at the moment. We can split them back into 2 houses, get planning on them, and just sell them as they are. I'm not even going to do the building work on it, because the building work will cost a lot of money, and they're good enough for DIY enthusiasts to have a go at them. So auctions, they're not selling as many as they were, which tells you that it's still quite tough times. Anything over 500,000 is harder to sell for the auctioneers. Anything under 500,000 is relatively easy. I don't normally make a political broadcast on my quarterly updates, but I think I have to, because the situation at the moment, I predicted that Keir Starmer and that dreadful Rachel Reeves will be gone by May. I still believe that, even more so now that the local elections are going to now going to happen because they tried to stop them, as you know. So did the Conservatives, of course, in Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex as well. But maybe we don't want Mr. Starmer to go anywhere, because what could replace him could be a lot more left-wing and a lot worse, and that could affect the money markets. That could affect the stock market and the bond market, because if the bond market and the stock market don't like whoever's coming in because they're more radical, they can be more left-wing, that could affect things. And with interest rates at the moment, they're talking about maybe coming down in March. I think it's the 18th or 19th of March. They may come down another 0.25%, because inflation, I don't know how that's come down to 3%, by the way, but there you go. It doesn't, I can't believe it is, but there we go. They think it is. That's good enough for me. So they might bring the interest rates down 0.25%. I think it's 50-50. I really do think it's 50-50. So the political situation, and of course there's Donald Trump as well. Well, Donald, if he starts getting a bit more difficult, that could affect the markets, which would affect interest. And of course, the property market does not like indecision. It doesn't like turbulence in the political scene. So please bear that in mind. And I have heard that a number of commercial tenants, so if you're looking to buy property which is already let, be really careful that those tenants can afford to pay the rent going forward, because I am hearing a number of people now are struggling to pay their commercial rent. So what are the opportunities? And of course, there are always opportunities in the property market, and that may change depending on your strategy. Your strategy may change, and people that come on my masterclass often looking to change strategy and to push going forward. Now, HMOs are still very popular, and going forward, I think that will remain. They're a pretty safe bet for a lot of people. And remember, not everybody is suited to being a developer. Many people should stick at being an investor. They're very good at it. Not everybody can convert or do both. So if they can't do it, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to stick at being an investor, you stick at being an investor. Now, in terms of developments, there are still a lot of properties out there that are underwater. And when I say that, what I mean by underwater, I mean that with receivers, and it's a distressed sale. Be careful with some of these, because you don't know what's gone on before sometimes. So just be careful with some of the distressed stock that is available out there. I buy quite a lot of it. Normally, I've been pretty successful with it, but on occasions, they have caught me out. So be very careful with that. There are opportunities, and even with all the landlords leaving the market, there's opportunities to buy investment property. Commercial property, again, we said great opportunities. Investment property which is commercially let. Be very careful. I said earlier, be very careful that these tenants are not in arrears, and that you're confident they can pay the rent going forward. Check their accounts to make sure they really can afford the rent that you are charging. Because if they go bankrupt, and don't forget the receiver only has to give 1 month's notice to you to cancel the lease, and then you are on the hook for the rates. Unless it's listed in England and Wales, if it's listed, there's no rates to pay. So there we have it. Lots of opportunities, exciting times. The sun is out, the snowdrops are out here, and I'll see you next time.